So Jeff Olm. Did I pronounce that correctly? Olm?
Yes, that's it.
Awesome. I'm like an expert at names, and I only botched 2 on the show so far. So Jeff Olm, Director of Cloud Solutions and Business Development at Eclipse Tech. So Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Thanks for coming on. And with these trying times, tell me a little bit about what you do, who you are, what you've been up to lately.
Yeah, well, I'll go back. I've been in the film and media business for like 35 years. I think I started in '83. I worked for a UHF TV station in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and then I graduated from University of Wisconsin Oshkosh. And I was working while I was working for that TV station. I was doing kind of local programming. We did polka show, bowling show, and like a rock show. So I got to learn all the basics of, following the people, spinning around the dance floor, dancing polka, handheld sports. And then I also directed the basketball and football games for my local college, which was University of Wisconsin Oshkosh. My degree was in radio, TV, film. And I had gone to the Broadcasters Convention in Dallas in 1986. And they also had Alpha Epsilon Rho, which was the National Broadcasters Honor Society. Well, I wasn't an honor student, but you only had to pay like $50, and then I thought, oh, that'll be a great title for my resume. So the TV station asked me to drive a remote truck out to Hollywood, and so I did that, and I landed at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel for a month, working on a show called The Stars Table. So that was kind of my introduction into Hollywood. And then it was basically 34 years on and off. 1986 was when I went out. I went out with my girlfriend, now wife. And then I started working in post-production at a place called the Post Group. And the great thing about that is they were doing the coolest stuff. It was the big days of music video. Michael Bay, Michael Bay and all the guys from Propaganda Films were doing Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson and MC Hammer. And we did all those music videos. Now I was an assistant editor at that part. So I got to learn from some really great people, guys that are the best in the business as far as editing, managing the room, which is a big part of it. Because if you got Michael Bay and you got to manage the room. If you got Prince in the room, we've had one of my mentors, Steve Purcell, was Prince's right-hand man, and we got to sit in the edit bay. And actually, he was a really nice guy to talk to. He was very interested in the technology. So did a couple specials with him, got some nice credits. And then I went to Orlando, and I worked for the Post Group at Disney World. I worked on the new Mickey Mouse Club, which at the time had child stars Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, and that whole clan. And that's where I moved up to be an editor. They had song and dance numbers, they had the Disney parades and things like that. So the basic of my beginning was as an editor. And then so I went to Nashville, did country music videos for 3 years, Reba, Garth Brooks, everybody. And then things got slow in Nashville. So I went to Atlanta. I freelanced at the '96 Olympics, and I did the closing package montage that was on the big Jumbotron thing, which was like a slow motion tearjerker, kind of, national thing or, whatever, international thing. Yeah. So that was really cool. Then I went to a convention in New Orleans, which is called SIGGRAPH, which is a computer graphics convention. And I had an interview there set up through some of my friends that I had worked with at the Post Group. Well, it was for a new startup company called Digital Domain. And so I went to the interview, and they said, well, we got some shows coming up. We have this show by a French director, Luc Besson, called Fifth Element. And we got another show from Jim Cameron coming up, who's doing this, sounds like a pretty big show, they said, and that was Titanic. So those are my first 2 movies. And as I say, it's been all downhill since, really, because, from those movies, working directly with Jim Cameron, Luc Besson, and just a great team at Digital Domain. And like I said, former friends from the Post group that I'd worked with, years earlier. And, through the years, I was able to get new jobs from those guys. I went to Sony ImageWorks. I worked on Robert Zemeckis' Castaway, What Lies Beneath, Harry Potter, Spider-Man 1. It's roughly about 150 films. I either did visual effects on or color correction. So I transitioned to being a colorist after, so it was editing, visual effects, and then colorist. That opportunity I got through working with a company called Autodesk, and they had a new product called Luster. That was the very first software-based color corrector, at the time. And through that, working for the manufacturers, I got to go work with the top colorists in the industry and to teach them this software, or at least demonstrate it, and to see how they work. So it was a great apprenticeship for that. And some of the best guys in the business, Stefan Sonnefeld from Company 3, who does all Michael Bay's stuff. He's probably he owns the company, so he probably is the highest paid colorist in the world, multimillionaire, owns Company 3 and things like that. So him and I were tape operators together at the Post group, back in the day when we first started. So it's a very storied past of great films, great people. David Fincher, I worked with him on the movie about the San Francisco killer.
Zodiac?
Zodiac, yes. And that was really great. And it was one of the opportunities that I had to first work remote. I went into the office and I had an iMac and it had some compositing software on it at the time. It was called Shake. And I was given—
I remember Shake.
Yeah. I was given a bunch of green screens and they were basically car shots. And what David had done was he would shoot the green screen and he would do like full take. So they would have the background, would last maybe 10 minutes or something like that. So what I would do on that particular setup, I would comp the whole 10 minutes. So when he went into editorial, he already had the background in it and it was basically a final shot. So, we did it smart. We didn't have markers in the way that we had to roto a bunch of stuff. I just set up the key. He bought the first shot and then I just, watched him render, cranked him through, set him up. And then David, Peter Mavramati is his post supervisor who's worked with him for years. He came in and he says, David wants this room. They got a show coming up and they need the space. Would you mind working from home? I said, I'll pack up. They gave me hard drives and things like that. And that show that they were setting up was Benjamin Button's. So, so I went and I finished Zodiac. I actually flew to Waterford, Connecticut. I worked on a show called The Bronx is Burning for ESPN, which was about the '78 Yankees. So I took the machine with me, and I had this big truck that was basically a mobile theater that we took to Waterford, Connecticut. And there was a camera called the Viper, which looked very green. And nobody liked looking at the green on the monitors. So basically, my friends and I, Brian Gaffney and Dan Lyon, we formed a company called Creative Bridge. And what it basically was the very beginnings of on-set color correction, which is something that's standard now. The DIT has the Resolve, or has the the suite and the color suite, and you see the look right on the set. And there's metadata and all kinds of things now. But all that I think was about 12 or 13 years ago. And hopefully someday the three of us can get like a scientific Academy Award for being like the first guys doing on-set color correction. But the other neat thing about it was we were at NAB and they had asked me, what can we buy that you can rent from us? And then at the time, because I was a flame artist and a luster colorist, I said, well, Autodesk flame, smoke, and luster combo machine, which would have been about a $500,000 kit, kind of at the time. Now you can get that whole thing for maybe 150, with monitors and and the whole thing. So that was the initial thing that I asked for. And then we started talking about the on-set color correction. Well, I didn't want to sit on set and I didn't want to have to schlep gear. So I said, well, let's put it in a truck and we'll make, like a mobile theater experience. So I found a race car hauler that was a double decker. It was 8 foot wide because you can't have it. It didn't have pull out sides on it or anything like that. But it was, like 10 to 12 feet high, and you could actually stack 2 race cars in it. So we just bought like a shell of that, and then we put in a 6 foot screen. We put in a simulate scratch color correction system, and at the time we had a little smaller projector. So that was kind of the start of location color correction, was with that truck. Well, 5 years ago, which was 10 years later for the truck, my friend Brian called me up and he goes, hey, Technicolor's putting together a show and it's going to have our old truck and they're going to put luster in it. And I said, well, sounds cool. That's right up my alley, my old truck that we built and luster. And I was, one of the more experienced luster colorists in the world. So then, so I said, well, what show is it? And he goes, it's this Mexican director and this Mexican DP, and it's going to be in Canada. And so that was The Revenant. So I went up to Canada for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, and was in the trailer in freezing Alberta winter, up there. And the trailer was a California trailer. So they had to winterize it and stuff like that. And somebody had broken into it previously while it was in someplace in Burbank or something and stolen a projector. So door was bent and the wind would howl through it. So, at night I do color for, I did the color for The Revenant. And Alejandro, the director, who won an Oscar Best Picture for it that year, and Chivo, Emmanuel Lubinski, won Best Cinematography for that. After they would be out in the water all day, falling in the cold water and all that stuff, then they'd come to me, and they were normally always grumpy. They fired a lot of guys. They fired like 4 focus pullers. And I was like, why? Because they shot without light. It was one of those things that was supposed to look all natural and everything like that. So they didn't light a scene in it. In fact, one day we came back to our hotel. We were on location in Squamish for a month. That's between Whistler and Vancouver. Rained all the time up there. And we came back, my assistant and I came back from lunch. And at the hotel, there was a bunch of lights set up and all that stuff. He goes, hey, you think our show is shooting back there? Says it can't be. There's lights. So yeah. So that's kind of a rambling, bunch of old stories of my travels and the great people that I've worked with. I spent 5 years at DreamWorks Animation, where I did How to Train Your Dragon, Shrek 4, Monsters vs. Aliens. And the big thing with that was they were all stereo movies. So at the time when stereo was the heyday, I was one of the guys that were, it's not much of a needed skill now because, well, now you can't even go to the movies, so much less see a 3D movie. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so with that, I was able to work with, Jeffrey Katzenberg, would come in and screen things and things like that. So, once again, just working with really, great people on How to Train How to Train Your Dragon. What's his name? There's the DP of How to Train Roger Deakins. Roger Deakins came in, and that was like a university course in color. We had already gone through it with the art director and the visual effects supervisor. Maybe the directors have looked at it, and then Roger would like come off of a gig, and then he would come in, and I was like, oh, why don't we try this on that? And And it was really nice because I had said to Roger, I said, who had worked on Luster at eFilm with Mitch Paulson, who I actually trained, and now he's big time super duper millionaire, BMW sports car. It's really nice. Yeah, I told him to go to eFilm. I said, yeah, go over there. He was an assistant. I was kind of being abused at a place, and I trained him on Luster. He goes, I'm going to get out of here. And I said, well, go over to eFilm. They're going to use, tons of assistants over there. And he became Steve Scott's assistant, who's another great friend and colorist who I collaborated with. He was the finishing colorist on the Revenant, and I was also on his team for Avengers: Age of Ultron and Guardians of the Galaxy. So yeah, basically I can name drop till the cows come home and throw off some of the biggest titles in the business. But back to the whole 3D thing, which came into play on Avengers and Guardians and stuff like that. I ended up being, they would finish the mono version of it, and then we'd fire up the left and right eye, and you had to offset the rotoscoping because the image was physically in a different place and things like that. So I mean, that was a great gig for a night guy. Did a lot of night shift, especially with the dailies on the shows, which was never fun. But basically, there's a limited number of theaters for the colorist to work in, and you needed to work off of a big screen. You needed to have glasses, and the whole thing. But through that stereo colorist thing, I was able to actually travel to Paris 2-3 times and speak on 3D color correction and things like that. And so that was another industry that I kind of killed was stereo. It just never took off. Everybody said, "Oh, 3D movies are going to be all the rage," and they had 3D camera rigs and stuff like that, and it just kind of died off. And then so I'll segue into what I was kind of doing as my last jobs in Los Angeles. Was I worked for a virtual reality company, and the name of that company is called Jaunt VR, and then they changed it to XR, and that was going to be the next big thing. So I went all in to learn on. I did virtual reality. I directed some shows and things like that. But the big thing about it with Jaunt, what they had was they had a camera that had 16 small HD cameras around in it. The form factor was about this size, and then it had 4 cameras up, 4 cameras down. So you basically had to take 24 camera images and have them be stitched all into a seamless sphere so you could look around in it. And it was stereo. So, the stereo stuff came into play. The VR was a new thing. And I went into that because it being a new field, and many of the traditional directors didn't know how to direct for it or how to block for it or anything like that. So I directed a few things there. And then basically it was the heyday. People were throwing money. Big companies were throwing money at virtual reality and stuff like that. And pretty much, I mean, Oculus is still around. They got bought by Facebook for a lot of money. Hewlett Packard is still making glasses and stuff like that. But I mean, it never really came to be, what we thought it was. The get rich thing that it was, like stereo movies and things like that. It was just another fad, that kind of technical fad that went away. So after that, I went back to doing dailies and, on a show. I went to Albuquerque. I did a show for the Disney Plus. It's called Stargirl. But I mean, that was Albuquerque night shift for 3 months, and I mean, there's really no place worse to be than Albuquerque, kind of. It's a big production hub. They have 2 huge stages there. I think Amazon bought a stage there. So there's 2 big stages on either end of town. They have tremendous tax breaks, and that's kind of what it's been. the tax, all the shows are chasing tax breaks. They want to get the 40% back, and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's a sordid tale of doing movies and things like that. And so then about maybe two and a half years ago, um, I just gotten back from doing the Albuquerque show, and there. Oh, and then I went over and I did some consulting in Europe, and I was in Berlin, talking about doing a startup, and all of a sudden I got a text on my phone, and it said evacuation orders, in my neighborhood and stuff like that. So I call my wife. I look on NBC4, the thing, of course, the helicopter showing the fire, and then our house was under evacuation orders in LA, in Simi Valley. So I wasn't there because I was in Berlin, and my wife and my son, were there. So they started to pack up the animals, pack up the RV, and get ready to go. And I think they missed we were in the city a little bit, but I think they missed the actual evacuation order, and we're still hanging at the house, kind of waiting. And so then eventually the evacuation order was rescinded. I came home. My wife, Stina Jaden, which is a Finnish name. She's a registered nurse. She was working hospice, and then all of a sudden there's these fires, and she said, "We got to get out of here." She goes, "LA is just going to burn up, have droughts," and luckily we hadn't had the earthquakes, or that would have been kind of the tipping thing for her. So we put the house on the market. I have a good friend of my son that was a fellow hockey player, Matt Salad, who now moved from LA to Portland. He got our house sold, and then it's like, oh, now, what are we going to do? And so we packed everything up, and we had talked about coming back home to Wisconsin. And my wife wanted basically a doomsday compound. So, a way that we could, kind of, start building, a way to have our own food, and, have a nice garden. So basically it was, she wanted a place with horses. She wanted a room for a garden, and it had to have either a stream or a pond, some freshwater, thing on it. And we, our area was going to be anywhere between Milwaukee and La Crosse, which is basically the southern part of the state. I was from the Appleton, Green Bay area, and but she didn't want to go up there. So we looked and we found a place. A realtor out of Madison. We found a 22-acre farm with horse stalls, with a big red barn, and a stream, a trout stream going through it. So it was everything that she wanted. And then it was, okay, what am I going to do, next? And I had been talking with Eclipse Tech, working with them. And about 2 years ago, we launched. And what Eclipse Tech is a way for you to work on a virtual machine on the cloud. And with just a modest internet connection. So I have an Alienware laptop, which is a great box, but what I can do is basically work anywhere in the world, and I can remote into my cloud machine that has a NVIDIA T4 card in it, has SSD storage. I can actually choose my virtual processor configuration. So I can either have, if I'm just working on something small, I can have 4 processors, the mediums 8 processors, and then when you go for rendering and the big thing, you can actually keep the same storage and change the configuration of your computer. So so I was working with them, and I helped design the ideas for stuff like that. I was the content expert of media and entertainment, which is kind of my niche. So so basically, I've edited Premiere Pro jobs on it. I run Resolve. I just finished a big movie, actually out of Kazakhstan, I was in Kazakhstan 6 years ago, and I did 3 films in a month, color correction. They flew me over there, and
Borat 2 and Borat 3 and Borat 4.
No, and Borat 2 is coming out pretty soon. I saw it. You know, the funny thing is that the Kazakh people took that personally as kind of you know, and an insult. But you know, I told them, I said honestly, I said I would have never heard of Kazakhstan if it wasn't for the Borat movie. I mean, it's a huge country, and they've been out from under the USSR for like 25 years. But it's beautiful, rolling hills. You know, they have horses, and you know, it's really great. The only weird thing is they do eat horse, and it's a delicacy. and they gave that to me, but they treated me like a king. You know, it was just like, oh, you know, the Hollywood guy, blah blah blah, and it's like, you know, I'm just a regular guy. Yeah. I don't speak Russian. I only learned spasiba, which was the thank you. But I had a driver, a translator, and a beautiful hotel, and I was there for a month. And I was like cranking through these films. And the place where I worked, Kazakh Film, they had would maybe do like 8 films a year, and maybe sometimes with 2 colorists. And here I was trying to jam 3 films in a month. It was roughly 27 days. So I filled up their servers. The only technical guy that spoke English, it was kind of funny because he'd always show up late, and then he'd blame it on the train and stuff like that. It's like, I'm like, dude, nobody speaks English in here. The drives are full. So you got to take the earlier train and get in.
Right.
So yeah, that was an interesting experience, and the fun thing about that one was I worked right up on. I think my flight was at 4:30, and I was in the morning, and then had a layover in Amsterdam. I worked until 2 in the theater, went straight to my hotel, took a shower, packed it up, went straight to the airport, and I had to make that flight because my visa was only a 30-day visa, and I said, well, let's just extend it. They go, no, that's not how it works. So you gotta go out, and maybe you can come back.
I hate
another time.
I hate when like, you know, productions or whatever, they just want to like line everything up right down to the minute, and they never give any buffer room. They, you know, a lot of productions always skip that contingency part of the budget.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
No, I mean, Revenant was the same way. You know, I didn't know I was going to Canada, you know, until the day before. You know, it's just like, oh, you know, hey, they greenlit the budget. And in the meantime, when I get there, you know, they had been doing test shooting for 2-3 weeks already. And it's like, well, how come if we're doing camera tests and stuff like that, how come there wasn't a colorist here? And yeah, you never know. I mean, penny wise, dollar foolish.
Right.
And that one was, I mean, it was, a funny thing was it had Leo in it, and poor Leo had never, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Leonardo had never won an Oscar, you know, for all the stuff he did. Titanic.
I know. Yeah.
Aviator, Wolf of Wall Street, and things like that. Well, the whole premise was that this one was going to be Leo's Oscar. So I think the budget started out, you know, they were nickel and diamond on money in the beginning, and
right.
And it was like 60 something or 80,000, you know, was the budget, which was very modest. Well, I think it ended up being about 120, 130. I mean, they doubled their budget. But it's one of those things why they brought in a dailies colorist. 2 things: they didn't shoot with light, and they knew that the studio was going to be nervous about this shoot. The director and camera guy had just come off of Birdman, and
right, yeah.
I think everybody was suspecting that they would win for that one. But at that point, while we were shooting, they didn't know. And then, you know, of course, when they, you know, after they came back after, you know, their Academy Awards, then, you know, it's like, it was like maybe a week of glee, and then I was back to misery, which was kind of funny because Alejandro gave the crew a speech, which normally you give like a rah-rah speech at the beginning, and it's like, hey, you know, this would be a great film. Look forward to working with you. Alejandro says, he goes, this film's about misery, and you're all going to be miserable. And, you know, it's like, whoa, wow, sounds like fun. So they went through a lot of crew. It was Vancouver crew because it was a Canadian film. And, you know, I came in from LA. There were some technical positions that they brought people in for. But the bulk of the crew was Vancouver. And, you know, they fired a lot of them, you know, a lot of practical special effects supervisors. You know, there was times when, you know, they would say, the crew would say, it's like, hey, we can't be dropping trees, flaming trees, you know, today because it's windy. And so one night, you know, I get a phone call and it's like, hey, he goes, you got the footage yet? And it was a post supervisor. And I said, yeah, I just came in. And he goes, well, you know, go down to, you know, around about a half hour in and get it queued up so I can come and see. And what had happened was it was the scene, it was the big opening battle scene, and there was a tree that was up that was on fire. And the tree was supposed to fall on the cabin and smash it. Well, the tree all of a sudden started coming at camera, and there was extras that were supposed to be playing dead down in the bottom, and the tree started almost going towards these people. It did go toward them, you know, laying on the thing, and they yelled, "Get out of the way!" So, and then when Alejandro comes back to look at it, he goes, "Those people are supposed to be dead. Why didn't they stay there?" You know, here there was a tree going to be falling out of
Right.
them. So yeah, it was no holds barred. It was a lot of fun, and luckily I didn't have to spend too much time on set. I'd go to set every once in a while. But as the idea was, there I was in the sanctuary of my mobile theater in my truck. And, you know, when they came in, of course, they were my guests and things like that, but it was still my truck. And so that was always great memories on every show that I did in that truck. And, you know, working with such great people was, you know, that's a lot of fun.
Jeff Ulm, everybody. I think that's a wrap on the episode already. no, but seriously, yeah, man, what a storied past, and I love it. I mean, those, you know, you're probably making residuals off of this or that. You're probably, you know, you got paid well, and you probably have, you know, like profit sharing, maybe, but
no, you don't. I mean, that's the one thing. I was in the Animators Guild at DreamWorks and at Disney Animation, and I worked for another place called Secret Lab that I did a crazy film called Reign of Fire, which is Matthew McConaughey.
yeah, dude,
with the dragon.
yeah,
bro. And they had.
I love that movie. Like that's got to be one of the best movie deaths.
Yeah,
like that was just like incredible movie.
Yeah,
and it's so dumb. Like it's a post-apocalyptic, like people just explain it to somebody. It could sound dumb. It's a post-apocalyptic
the best
dragons.
The best dumb scene that they handed to me. My producer friend Lisa Goldberg and Mark Scott was another you know, person that was working on it. And Lisa, they were shutting down the Secret Lab. I'd worked at DreamQuest Images, which was in Simi Valley, and was the whole reason that we moved up there. And Disney had bought it, and they had just expanded and a bunch of stuff. And there I did Armageddon, Mighty Joe Young, the infamous Inspector Gadget, and Stigmata. But you know, a hand film. Gone in 60 Seconds was the last film that I did there, and they were just getting ready to do Mission to Mars. And, you know, then I left, and I went to Sony ImageWorks, and that's when I, you know, did Harry Potter and that stuff. But years later, 3 years later, they had shut down DreamQuest Images and changed it to the lab. And the secret lab. And Lisa Goldberg gave me this. She goes, "Oh, I got this whole green screen sequence of these skydivers." And, I said, "So what are they doing?" "Well, they jump out of a helicopter and they got these net guns."
Yep.
And I said, "Net guns?" And they're chasing a dragon and they're going to take down the dragon with these net guns. And it's just like, I said, "Really?"
Incredible movie. Incredible.
So there it was. I got these scenes, and they had green screen. It was the divers, and they were on gimbals, and they had like some kind of. Actually, they were just sitting there, so I had to add camera shake to them, and then they actually made like CG volumetric clouds and things like that, because there was wide shots that went through it, and the dragons were incredible. I mean, the dragons, the CG fire. I mean, for the time, that would have been mid maybe 2005, 2006, something like that. But that's still 15 years ago.
Yeah.
No, maybe later, 2010, I'll guess. But still. But now things have come a long way. Now things are going with COVID, and I know you want to talk about a little bit about what's going on now. So basically, what's happening now is, of course, there's a lot of stuff that is in production already. The Dick Wolf films, Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, Chicago Police, all those are back shooting, and they basically test the crew once or twice a week. They have zones. You have like a wristband on, or a color thing that shows what zones you can go to. The craft services are, instead of it being a buffet, are all individually prepared meals. You don't eat together. They spread you out while they eat, because it's pretty high risk.
Yeah.
If they go out of production, I mean, it's not a couple $1,000. If you got to shut down and ship everybody back to LA from Chicago, or ship everybody back home, you're talking $1 million, maybe $5 million, to get shut down. The other thing is, once you get shut down, you're going to have a heck of a time getting started back up.
Yeah.
Because then you're going to be on double secret probation, to get back going. But the testing, the NBA guys, the NFL guys, all those guys, they get tested, once a day, sometimes. And, the shows don't have the budgets for it. There's a new position, kind of being the COVID guy that would take temperatures.
Yeah, I just got certified as a CCO. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And
there's just so much into it. I'm an experienced AD production manager, and so I knew it was right up my alley. I'm also in the National Guard, so there's all these COVID compliance stuff that we have to do in the National Guard, and then, like I said, experienced AD, production manager, actor, and so having been on both sides of the camera and knowing what's all entailed, I thought CCO was right down my alley as far as trying to fill the schedule, but there's a lot into it, and it's not going to, the AD is not going to be the most hated guy on set right now. It's going to be the CCO.
Yeah.
And the CCO. Yeah, exactly. And CCO is now the first one on set, last one off. And so I know the AD's happy to hear about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, the wristbands and at least it's temperature taking. I think at least once, in check-in. I think in checkout also, but I got to go back over my notes. But yeah, I mean, it's a whole new ball game, at least for the next 1.5 2 years.
Now you have to do that everywhere. The doctor will take our temperature. The dentist is definitely a big thing. I'm not sure the dentists are actually going to be, with the new surge now, and sadly Wisconsin is like in the top 5 or something like that. And, following that and knowing that LA is actually on its way back to recovery, and it's just like, come on, Wisconsin. The reasons I see for it is, first off, Labor Day. You know, everybody goes out and parties on their boats and does all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff on Labor Day. Second thing is that all the university, the Wisconsin universities went back to school. And, you know, and what's going to happen when you take 18 and 19-year-olds, the 18-year-olds have never lived away from home, and you throw them in this dorm, you know, all on top of one another and things like that. So, I mean, the rates are just, they're off the charts, you know, right now. And sad to say, Wisconsin is, you know, one of those things. And my wife is she's a registered nurse that works in a skilled nursing facility. So we just basically stopped going anywhere. I mean, we don't go out. I'm getting my groceries from, you know, I'm going and picking up the groceries and things like that. Simply because, you know, I think it's important that we wear masks everywhere, and that, you know, you're just aware of your surroundings and to be considerate of others, because we just need to get through, you know, this. And, you know, we know there's something else, you know, coming down the pipe, but
Yeah.
let's just get through this, you know. And Fauci said the other day, you know, Fauci said there's a resurgence. I was just looking at Variety online, and UK has a bunch of has a spike now. United Kingdom and Scotland and all that, and they but the article said it's not going to stop the shows, so they know the economic impact of you know, what the shows bring. Los Angeles is still down, you know, quite a bit. The shows haven't really started up all that much. Most of them are location shows, and if they are, you know, in a place where, and like those little island shows where they throw a bunch of couples and stuff, you know,
Oh
on
yeah.
there, like those are good, because then, you know, everybody's just stays in the same compound, and nobody, you put a bubble like the NBA did. Nobody's in or out. And the thing is, you guys got to figure out how to get foods and stuff in. But one of the technologies, back to the more of getting towards COVID, one of the technologies that I was working with 2 years ago before I came out here is virtual production. So was it Mandalorian? Disney's Mandalorian, I think, did
Yeah,
the
with the LED instead of
yeah.
green screen. Yeah, it's the LEDs. Yeah.
So I was just talking to some of my friends on that, and they said that LED rig that they had is 5 to 6 million for just the surrounding LED screens and things like that. And then,
Yeah.
of course, what goes into it is a camera tracking head. So there's basically a device on the camera, and it can be a area Alexa. It'll be, you know, all the top cameras, and it's taking the lens information, the lens type, the position in 3D space, because there'll be trackers on the infrared trackers and stuff on the ceiling. So the LED screen moves, or the image moves on the LED screen in real time in reference to the camera. Well,
Mm-hmm.
what makes that magic happen is Epic Games Unreal Engine 4.
Unreal Engine. Yeah.
Unreal Engine is the hottest ticket for anybody that's wants to get into film, that wants to. Right now. There's not enough Unreal Engine artists, and you know, we're kind of, you know, working on some things with Unreal and virtual machines and things like that, and it's really great. You know, if you take a great NVIDIA graphics card, you know, like the Tesla 4 card, and you start dragging around these big scenes in them, they work way better than the gaming cards. And you know, it's basically souped up Fortnite. You know, that's Epic's where they made their money and things like that. So that's the latest technology now that's going to be used to kind of fight COVID on set. And the other thing is crowd replacement, is CG crowds and things like that. Weta Digital, who's done so many great films. They have now customized it and built a rig. Well, they're doing the 3 avatars, down in New Zealand now. So I mean, they got the money for it, they got the time, they got the bodies, and they just want to do it right. So the avatars will probably be the biggest. Of course, it's Jim Cameron, so it is going to be the biggest stuff that comes out. And right now the visual effects business. I mean, I know guys that haven't worked since March, and these are big money guys, 80, 60, $100 an hour, guys, and to just go to like from 100 miles an hour to 0, is a huge thing. And so with the Eclipse Tech, what I've been trying to do to show to my friends and stuff like that is like, hey, you might not have a big, you might not have your Hewlett Packard, Z840, machine with the, multiple P6000 cards and things like that. But you can rent a machine for the length of the job and not having to worry about it, being obsolete. The companies that provide, Google, Amazon, and stuff like that, that provide the virtual machines, they take care of the maintenance and everything like that. And it, with like, if I'm working on a machine that has a Tesla T4, card in it, the new cars that they're talking about, right now that you can't get, well, I'll be able to get those in 6 months, or in a couple months. First off, because Amazon can get first dibs on everything. So, but it is a big thing to retrofit all their data centers. And basically, the way it works is you find a data center that's close by to you. So for me, it's Ohio. There's one in Northern California, Northern Virginia. Of course, they have a huge one there because of the big your neighborhood and then the general business over there, government business. And then what's the other one? Well, Northern Virginia is must be their biggest one, because we have clients in South America and they'll run out of North Virginia simply because the Sao Paulo, Brazil one is so expensive. So they must have just so much gear in Northern Virginia that you can get a really good price on it. So the beauty of working on a virtual machine, and we also have clients that are at universities, is you pay for what you use, and then when you're done with the show, you just go back and you just back up your stuff, delete your stuff, and then it doesn't cost you anything. As opposed to when you buy a machine and you always buy the, I want to buy the best graphics card, I want this, and then you'll work on it for 2-3 months, and then all of a sudden you'll go and do something else, or you'll get a job with a facility and your equipment will just sit there or something like that. Just getting old and not making any money, yet you still have to pay for it. So that's kind of the beauty of virtual machines, is you pay for what you need, you fire up when you need it, and then when you're done, just let it go, and then wait for the next gig. The equipment will be be upgraded, and the cost just keeps getting better all the time. The cost is dropping on it because Google and Azure and Amazon, they have all these data centers, and they need to keep them busy.
Yeah, and I mean, especially in these days, and like you said, you built your compound, you built your doomsday compound, and like you kind of took Eclipse to this whole VR cloud thing. And I was just talking to my previous guest on this show about, for the past 2 years, I was kind of just building a studio, green screen, a couple of different, as an actor, I have a white sheet, here for doing self-submits, self audition submits as an actor, and a green screen for some passion projects that me and some other colleagues do. And then I got this, and I was, thinking of changing this every once in a while for the, for the podcast, and, specific mics or headsets. People are more acceptable with gaming headsets, or not even a headset at all. I mean, you sound perfectly fine, as far as, podcast and in Zoom kind of virtual conferences go. And so for the past couple of years, I've been building kind of like this basement at home studio for a whole slew of reasons. And then it just kicked into overdrive during the quarantine because I have experience, not only on set, ADing, producing, directing, writing, or acting. I jumped onto the live streaming and the virtual conferences, and I have a lot of experience, playing VR games.
Mm-hmm.
And like at what point is the VR games kind of interface, is that going to be universities and conferences?
Oh yeah.
In seminars where someone at some point needs to get 17 pictures, like you said, it's got to be like snapshots all around here, and build their online avatar.
Right.
So I have my online avatar, then I put on the Oculus goggles or the Google Glass or whatever the case, what was that? No, Google Cardboard, and I can lead a conference or I can attend a conference, but people will see this digital rendering of me at this event or in school teaching a class or leading a workshop. It's all VR now.
Sure.
Or eventually will be. Yeah. And so especially with this COVID, it's been kicking everybody into overdrive as to like you said, Unreal Engine I've seen on all sorts of platforms for the past number of years, but now it's on everything.
Yeah.
And anything right now.
Yeah. I mean, they really broadened it. I mean, since they crossed into photoreal,
Mm-hmm.
now they're using it for selling cars, because
Yep.
maybe you can't go to the showroom and things like that. And one of the things conferences and conventions are always a love-hate. You kind of, get excited going to it, and then it's like, oh crap, I got to go to Vegas for 3 days, but now all that got canceled. CES, did they have CES? I'm not sure if they had. It was in January, so that would have been early. Yeah, they probably had CES, but
yeah.
I mean, just think of CES is all of Vegas's convention centers filled with people all over the world for 5 days. And then they just go back to China, to Japan, and whatever. I mean, there was talk. People think that maybe COVID was even around at CES, which was the first week of January, things like that, because people come in from China, and and all over the world. But yeah, the world changed. Movies stopped. Just thinking about the Oscars this year, and one of the things you want to talk about is like what movies, or things have been looked at in the last year. And I mean, I just kind of stopped watching movies. One thing, I think one of the reasons is, and I obviously wouldn't go to them, but there was times when I would work. My office was in a theater for 12 or 14-hour days.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes I just, and much less put on 3D glasses to go and sit there after you have been having them on all day and things like that. So theaters aren't that. I really like my TVs at home, and I'm a member of the Visual Effects Society, so I get all the big movies start coming in around Thanksgiving. So I'm not sure. There's not that much that's new this year. But that's the nice thing is from Thanksgiving to, and of course when it's cold in Wisconsin, Thanksgiving to February, I watch all those screeners when I want, whenever, just pop in the Blu-ray and things like that. So that's where I, kind of catch up on movies. What I like, now on TV and this year is a lot of the stuff that Netflix, is doing. My daughter's a story producer and a field producer for a Boardwalk Productions in Santa Monica. And she was so lucky because she worked on a show called Street Food. And so she basically spent a year traveling the world going through all these different Asian street markets and things like that. And she was lucky to do that because you can't do that, anymore. So that's why the travel shows, old travel shows that were shot within the last year. There's another show that she did called Home Game, that she went to the Highland Games in Scotland. She went to the Philippines where they did deep diving and things like that. And she would have to research and come up with, find the people and things like that. And when you're like trying to get a hold of people in the Philippines and set something up in the Philippines, and you're in the States, it's really really a logistical nightmare. So I'm real proud of her, for that. And one of the other ones that she came up with the idea for was roller derby. There was an episode of Home Game that was Austin roller derby girls, and so yeah, that was another interesting thing. But I mean, roller derby is another thing of the past. For now, Highland Games, there may not be a Highland Games. Obviously, we've seen what the situation is with football, and I did see this morning that no players have tested positive, right now. So that's huge. That's a big milestone because they're not doing the Orlando bubble. These guys are still living at their houses, still out in the community. They're obviously they're traveling charter and stuff like that. But yeah, I think, and I thought it was. I don't think we need high school sports. I think the university sports, the Big Ten, just came back. I don't think we need that because I'm hoping the universities can make it through the semester. With they should all just go virtual. I think in order to kind of beat this thing, people just really, there needs to be a whole different lifestyle change that we just need to kind of watch out for each other and be wary of each other and do the best things that you can. And it's like we go to church but we haven't gone to church since February or March.
Look, they're doing Zoom services. They're doing Zoom teaching. The wife's a third grade teacher, and so she's doing the Zoom teaching. They're doing Zoom services. My mom does a bunch of Zoom services, and I've got some family members that are doing Zoom therapy. When they went to, they would go to a therapist every once in a while, and some family members are calling me up, say, can you show me how to use Zoom? And so and which this is where procrastination bit me in the ass, because there was a number of older family members of mine who I wanted to go over and put Team Viewer on their computer, so I could tap into their computer on my Team Viewer on my computer, because they always had an issue. This was way before quarantine. I was like, I got to go. We got to set up a time. I'll come over there. I'll install this program on there, because they always have, how do I update my Netflix queue? Or it's always some simple question that I have to be there to show them. But then the wife was pregnant. All right, let me get over there and put Team Viewer on there at one point, and then quarantine happened, and I was like, damn it, I knew it. So eventually I put Team Viewer on there, and I'm showing them how to do Zoom or how to do whatever, so they can do their services, they can do their sessions, they can do their work, or just just chat with friends or whatever the case. But like we're back to the home games though. We're just finding, whenever, especially Americans, but I'm sure the rest of the world as well, we find funny ways of adapting, not just constructive, creative, but we're finding like these ways. And let me see if I can make this work. That, like I said, adapting this show. But like we got this thing. Hold on. Well, I can't get it to work, but anyway.
No, I see it.
Yeah, but you got Bernie Lomax, with the home games. That what they're doing now with the home games is they're doing like they got the cutouts of people. People can buy cutouts of themselves.
Oh yeah.
and so that's what and so somebody did Bernie Lomax from you know,
Weekend at Bernie's.
from Weekend at Bernie's, and so that's what people are up to these days, and they're just finding, you know, creative, quirky ways of just because you know, who would know that? Who would know that scene from that movie except for, you know, maybe folks like us in our age range that went and like that's Bernie, dude, and it's just like these funny little workarounds.
You know what I've seen at the NBA games? I was watching up until the Bucks are out. Now I watch the Lakers every once in a while. They put LED screens behind the benches, and they've got people watch. They got Zoom boxes,
Right.
So they'll fill the LED with a Zoom box, and then I mean they can get some form of crowd noise and things. You know, with people yelling into their TV watching the game. You know, and have them record on Zoom. I think that's the best application. You know,
right.
of bringing the crowd in, and the one thing that I haven't been a fan of is the crowd noise on the TV.
It's a laugh track. It's a crowd.
Yeah.
It's not a laugh track. It's like a crowd track of cheers. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
hey, listen, I've never been a fan of watching baseball on TV anyway, so it's not like I'm watching it now. But
yeah.
I mean, I love going to the ballpark. I love going to. For me, it's Camden Yards, the Orioles in Baltimore, Camden Yards. But I even played baseball, you know, in middle school and you know, a tiny bit in high school. I never made the high school team, but you know, I think I was an amazing baseball player when I was younger. So I was always into it, but watching it,
yeah.
You know, unfortunately the wife's a Dallas fan, but even so, you know, like NFL, I think is the only sport that was ever worth watching on TV. Oh, yeah. It's just so fast paced. So like I can watching NBA is like watching ping pong or tennis. You're a Packers fan, okay, it makes sense. But you know, watching NBA is like as entertaining is just about as entertaining as watching tennis or ping pong.
Yeah,
back and forth. Put it in. And just watching the score, it's just like watching the score go like this.
Yeah.
Baseball is like,
yeah. I mean, I have a love for baseball. As a kid, I grew up at a White Sox minor league park, and my dad was a bat boy and stuff like that for guys like Boog Powell and Cal Ripken Sr. and things like that. So I grew up with a White Sox minor league team, and you know, it was the best childhood a kid could have. You know, here, you know, most of the time people just go to the games and stuff like that. Well, I was hanging out with these guys, and when I was 16, I went on the road with them to Iowa. So, you know, there was teams in Illinois, Iowa, and stuff like that. So, yeah, at 16, it was hotels, going out to dinner. I got meal money. And you know, it sure beat. One year I worked at Treasure Island pushing carts in the snow. I love my summer job and, you know, the ballpark. And so, you know, I've got a lot of friends in sports. So I was a groundskeeper. And the guys that I worked with in Appleton, Barney Lopez is the head groundskeeper for Anaheim Angels. And then Brandon Kinke is the head groundskeeper for the Cleveland Indians. Now, these are just kids from Wisconsin that I worked with, you know, all the time. And they get World Series rings when they win, and they get points. They get money out of the big pot because groundskeeping is an important thing. So I skipped the groundskeeping stuff. You know, I went into movies, and I thought, oh, going to LA was going to be kind of the big, you know, that was going to be the big thing. And I did. You know, I had a great time. I had got a really good friend that I worked with on those polka shows and the dance shows. He stayed in Green Bay, and he did Green Bay commercials and things like that. Well, then he got into working with the Packers, and now he has the best job in Green Bay. He is director of game day experience for the Packers. So he directs the Tundra Vision, so which is the big jumbotron that they have, it's basically he runs the game. So his script basically says, okay, cue the F-18s. National anthem starts in 30 seconds, and then okay, go F-18s. Packers, get them on the field. Hurry up. Okay, move those cheerleaders. Get the halftime show out there and all that stuff.
Right.
I mean, I'd rather be doing that than having done the Hollywood stuff. And now, now after all my experience and everything, it's just like I'm going, Shuby, come on, man, give me a gig. I want to, go over and work on the Packer games, and someday that'll happen.
Yeah.
But it's just it's interesting, how you start out, working at University of Wisconsin, Oshkosh, Titan TV2, and then you end up working with all these great people, or working for a major league sports team, and things like that. I mean, there's so many industries out there that don't have the opportunity that we get in the media business.
Yeah.
To meet these people, to travel the world, to go to all kinds of concerts and stuff like that. Last year I went to Farm Aid, and I have a personal project that called Farm State, that I'm doing. At the time, last year, the biggest concern was the plight of the American farmer. That the
Yep.
family farms are disappearing. Milk prices are low. There's a record number of bankruptcies for farmers and things like that. And I mean, all that got overshadowed because now everybody's going bankrupt and everybody's being foreclosed upon. And the legislature in Washington can't even decide to give everybody another, $1,200. And it's like, and how far does $1,200 even go?
Yeah.
It's like, so yeah, it's a crazy time. I'll tell you a little bit about some of the things that that I have been doing locally. So coming back to Wisconsin, was there's two opportunities. There's television news and sports and corporate video, and or the Packers, the Brewers, or the Bucks. And that's real, or independent filmmaking. Those are basically the options. And I tried to get in with I applied for the Bucks. I even applied with the Vikings. But I mean, my background necessarily wasn't sports. My background was major motion picture filmmaking and visual effects and stuff like that, which doesn't lend itself to all that much. Oh, and yeah, the visual effects guys don't get residuals. Only the actors get residuals. So, and I was in the union and things like that. But you get a pension through the motion picture.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean, oh no, go ahead.
Okay. I want to make sure that I talk about the projects that I just finished. One of those is a local project from a director, Rianne Rell, and she was an actress in LA. She's from Sheboygan, Wisconsin. She went out to school in USC, and then like me, she came back during the summer and just said, "Hey, I want to do a movie about Wisconsin." So she did kind of a Thelma and Louise, two girls hop in a car, do a road trip, go up to northern Wisconsin. So I just finished the last shot on that, and that's actually going to be coming out in November on Amazon. I think, and some of the other streaming services. So one of the things, the independent, I mean, the whole gig used to be you do an independent film, you go to an independent film festival, you sell it to somebody and things like that. Well, guess what? No film festivals. Everything's virtual now. And it's definitely a different experience. I mean, there's less of a thrill for the filmmaker to go, to watch their production on their own TV, because it's not like you can even go to somebody else's house and watch it. I mean, that's just not socially acceptable anymore. But Rianne has that, and I get a credit as an editor on that, and of course the colorist, which I was just looking at going into. I said, hey, I'll do the color for you, and then So she ended up editing most of it, and then I just went through, tightened it up, put in the transitions, the dissolves, and did all that stuff. So she was kind enough to give me a editor credit on that. The other film that I just finished a couple months ago was the Kazakhstan film, and that's called 18 Kilohertz. And I want to give a shout out to Dina Kosmekatova, who was the producer on it. And I met her 5 years ago, and this is the third film that I've done with him. And the director is Farat Shirpov, who's a super duper guy. Wins all kinds of major awards over there. Won Best Picture at the Russian Film Festival and things. Now these guys use top-notch stuff. I mean, they shoot with the red. The DP is really tight. You know, with his lighting is great. I mean, way better than many independent films. What sometimes happens with independent films is they use a multiple variety of cameras, and then you as the colorist kind of have to, you know, make, you know, kind of take a goulash of, oh, this camera, this crash cam, you know, hey, I shot GoPro and stuff like that, and then make it all into a big feast that everybody loves. But yeah, the Kazakhstan film industry is very storied. They still have a film lab that's open, and a lot of the projects are government funded. They're very proud of their heritage and things like that. And this particular film was about drug use in the 90s, in Kazakhstan, and so it was a period piece, which really lend itself, as a colorist, I could really get into it to, you know, make it look kind of old school, you know, Soviet, post-Soviet architecture and things like that. So that was a really fun film. So that probably will be coming out next year. And the film previous to that actually made the long list for Golden Globes. So you know, that kind of tells you the caliber that, I mean, it's just not a run-of-the-mill film gets in the list for the Golden Globes. So that's really cool. I do have another project. I have to mention my actor friend Dan Davies had a thing called the Film Forte. There's an independent film festival in my hometown of Appleton. Well, somebody told him that I was back in the state, and then Dan called me up and he goes, "Hey, you know," he goes, "I heard you're back in the state. You do a lot of work on independent films and stuff like that. You know, we'd like to give you a Lifetime Achievement Award in post-production for it." So yeah, I got this really, you know, beautiful, nice trophy, which is, I've been on Academy Award-winning teams, you know, obviously, but, you know, there's only like the director and the DP, and
Yeah.
you know, even on Titanic, there's 4 guys that get you know, a statue, you know, on that, out of, you know, a crew of 400 or 500, you know. So it's not like I have statues for those. So that's really nice. I have some really great projects lined up with him, including a concert film in Europe that you know, I'm talking about next year. And then there's another guy out of Madison that I met, Rob Slamka, that we have a Untitled project, very exciting, contemporary with the times, that I'm the creator, you know, of that. So I've got that going, and I'm doing a pitch piece for that right now. And then I have, what is it? I Dream of Psychopop, which is a director named Danny Villanova Jr. And he's been talking about this for a while, that, you know, I thought it was going to be coming in, and he's still finishing up the visual effects on it. But it's that same thing, because there isn't film festival deadlines and rushing it. Mm-hmm. He's making sure that this is his vision. And that's, you know, in a big film, you don't get that. I mean, there's only one guy that I know that was able to extend the deadline, and that was Cameron. Mm-hmm. You know, the original deadline was 4th of July, and they actually made us like work 4th of July too. But the film didn't come out until November, December.
Right.
And there is no way that we're going to hit that deadline, because there's still about 50 of the hardest shots to do, you know, in July. Yet everybody's acting this like, well, show's almost done. And when you're on the inside, down in the bowels, watching your friends trying to pull off the most difficult shots that have ever been attempted, literally, in the world, a $250 million film 22 years ago, was unheard of. And it's only, so he's the only director that I've ever known that's been able to push the deadline, on it now. And he's still doing it. He's doing that on the avatars, because they lost a little time because of COVID.
Yeah.
Luckily, New Zealand's an island. So, they basically just say, hey, nobody's coming in.
Nobody's going out.
Come in. Yeah.
Maybe you can leave, but you're not coming back. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Australia is the same way, and their Australia has a huge film industry. Really, really great stuff. And those are the places that are able to come back. And the United States just isn't an island, and and I'm not even sure they're doing temperature testing, at the airports, and well, we can't go anywhere. I mean, we can't even go to Canada,
right?
Right now. I probably, you or I probably could, on a show if the show, wrote, but we'd have to quarantine for 14 days, and are they going to pay you for those? That's the other part with shows. Are they going to pay you for those 14 days?
Right.
Especially a whole crew. Are you going to quarantine your camera guy, your grids, and everybody? And I mean, if it's a union shoot, there has to be something that they would at least have to give you half pay or something like that. It's not like you just take 2 weeks downtime and, oh, hey, this 2 weeks is on me.
Right. I'm not coming out there for free, to just sit there for 14. No. Exactly.
The other huge challenge right now, in fact, the biggest challenge of a major film, not so much independence, because a lot of times they don't have insurance anyways, is getting insurance, especially cast insurance. The underwriters just aren't doing it, and that is the single biggest reason why things aren't rolling in LA, is they can't get insurance to roll. Because like I said, the show shuts down for 2 weeks. If you have insurance for that, you just make a claim and there you go.
Yeah.
The insurance companies, they know, they're the actuaries or whatever look at it, and it's just like, hey, you know what? These are worse than Vegas odds. The chances of somebody getting it are pretty
exactly.
Are pretty good. I'm not going to put my money on the line for that type of thing. And the other thing is, the other people that are facing big challenges are the ones that had to shut down. So basically, as you know how film works is they borrow money, to make the film, and then the whole reason you rush to get it out and stuff like that is to pay back that money, so your interest is less. So if you borrow that money, and now you've just been shut down for 5 months, there's producers, having heart attacks over, it's like, shit, I'm on the line for 150 million. And when's this thing going to end? And I can't get insurance, and I can't get any crew in.
Right.
So yeah, it's tough. And that's the really toughest part, is just like, I look at my Facebook memories and things like that. And 6 years ago, I was in Canada. It always seems like September is when I went someplace. So I went to Calgary. And then 5 years ago, I went to Beijing. I actually lived in China for 6 months. And I started a visual effects and virtual reality academy for students that had graduated the university but didn't feel like they had gotten enough filmmaking skills to get a job. So then we would, Sense 11 Academy is what it was called, and we would train them up and then help them get jobs, at the places out there, and or here, if we cherry pick the stars, if they're a really good Maya guy or something like that. and the China film industry is, is huge. They build these. Last year, I was at a huge studio that my friend Patrick Dempsey built for Wanda. It was Qingdao, which was the China's beer making capital of the world. Beautiful. He had built like 14 sound stages. It's now 40 sound stages in the world's largest underwater tank and things like that. And I got flown out there to speak about how universities and facilities should work together and have internship programs and things like that. Because what was happening, they crank all these kids out of these universities. And there are so many universities in China. And part of the time I was flying around and speaking about virtual reality to all these different universities. And in Qingdao, there's like 7 major universities, and they have like 80 to 100,000 kids each, in just one city that, not many people hear of Qingdao, but yeah, China has a fantastic film industry. They have great incentives. The only problem is that the script needs to be approved. So you can't have ghosts and, obviously the, military movies and things like that. While they can be done, the script gets scrutinized. I worked on a film a long time ago, actually at Digital Domain, and it was Richard Gere was the star in it. And he has a big stance, against China and some of the things that they did. So it was called Red Corner.
Mm-hmm.
And we basically built Kevin Mack, the visual effects supervisor, who won an Oscar for What Dreams May Come. They built a little village in Playa del Rey, and so there's a lot of green screen stuff. Of course, we had to get rid of the skyscrapers and things like that. But that was basically Playa del Rey, California, mimicking Beijing.
Mm-hmm.
And the scenes where he goes in and out of the embassy and like that, and escapes that. Those are the shots that I worked on, and there's a rooftop chase and things like that. But that had to be shot in the U.S. because Richard Gere isn't allowed to film in China. So,
yeah,
and that was a long time ago, a really long time ago.
Well, Jeff, I mean, that's what a storied career. I mean, this is probably one of the easiest podcasts that I've done, because you just I just let you take over, and it's fantastic.
I'm a talker, that's for sure.
Hey, that's fantastic. Hey, no complaints here, man. No complaints here. Well, you had mentioned that a student from Oshkosh, Wisconsin, just rose up and was on a number of Oscar-winning films, and I think it's just persistence. It's persistence. It's love what you do, and persistence and determination, and just you mentioned Cal Ripken Sr. and Cal Ripken Jr. obviously Orioles Hall of Famer. What is it? Triple-time, quadruple world record holder, still has been broken. And I think his games went past 2131. 2,131 games consecutively. Yeah. But for me, obviously, who doesn't want to win an Oscar, and who doesn't want to be like the superstar? Who doesn't want to be the director, the writer-director star of these Oscar-winning blockbusters? But at the same time, it's just doing what you love and sticking with it. I mean, because Cal Ripken, I don't think was Cal Ripken didn't break the home run record, but he showed up, huh?
He was an Iron Man.
But he's the Iron Man. He showed up for work every day, stood at shortstop, and then went home. Stood at shortstop, and then went home. And if he had a cold, if he had a flu, if he had a broken ankle, a busted thumb, an achy shoulder, thrown out his neck, he still showed up.
Yep.
At shortstop. Okay, go home. And it was, and so that always stuck with me. Like, if you're doing what you love and you show up every day, all of a sudden Cal Ripken's got, I don't know how many different, records.
Yeah, well, if you look up Cal Ripken Jr. and you look up his birthplace, Appleton, Wisconsin. So yeah,
So Cal Ripken Jr. is Wisconsin born.
yes, yeah,
Oh,
because Senior was playing for the Appleton Papermakers
okay.
at the time in the must have been the 50s,
Hmm.
50s or 60s, but yeah, I mean that's the same thing. You know, I've got the legends like like Brett Favre, and when I was a kid, a guy played for the Bucks called Lou Alcindor, who later became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and they were just good guys with work ethics. And you show up, you put in your work. The other big thing that I have to say is I've really just been blessed with being at the right place at the right time, capitalize on the opportunity, but then never burn a bridge. Was the other thing, and that's how, like, when I went from the post group as my first or second gig in Hollywood, and I probably worked maybe like 8 other places, and then it was like I went to the movies and I watched Twister, The Rock, and something else. And I saw my friends' names on the credits that I had worked with at the post group. And I was sitting in Nashville, and like I said, things that I was like had just gotten laid off. I was going to do the Olympics and stuff like that, but I didn't have anything lined up after that. And I saw their names in the credits. Like, yeah, and they're doing movies. I can do movies. And I was running Autodesk Flame, and that was what they needed. They needed Flame guys at Digital Domain. So I reached out to a friend of mine, Fred Ramondi. He was a great director. We actually used to work on Star Trek: The Next Generation
Hmm.
together. And I called him up and I say, "Hey, Fred, what's going on out there?" And he goes, it's like, "Hey, dude, you got to come out. It's like they got Titanic and all kinds of stuff going. They need bodies." And I had the Flame experience, and I was cheap because I was coming from Nashville, whereas all the other LA Flame guys were already making top money. So I had to, when I went to Digital Domain, definitely wasn't top money. But by the time I left DreamQuest and went to Sony and stuff like that, then I got into the money. But I've been real fortunate. With 3 kids. My wife is a nurse, and putting them through college and things like that. But I have to say, I was thinking this morning, while I was out doing the chores. Basically, our neighbor gave us a blind calf, which we bottle feed them. In the morning, I got 2 goats and 6 chickens and things like that. And it's just like, I used to be sitting on the 405 in traffic for an hour and a half to get to the gig. And, that now the ability to be able to work remote and, and using the cloud and have the same horsepower, and the security of it. I mean, that's always been the dream. Everybody's thought, it's like, hey, there's all these great artists all over the world,
Hmm.
but do I need to fly them in, house them to come sit in a cubicle for, 12 hours? And no, I mean, you don't. People can work remotely, and you can get talent at a less expensive rate. Through the years, basically what happened in Hollywood was Vancouver bought the visual effects industry, over the last 10 years through tax incentives and things like that. So basically, all the visual effects companies went up there to chase them. Digital Domain went, Rhythm and, well, not Rhythm and Hughes. They went out of business, but everybody's up there. But what that happens, then the artists need to go up there, at least initially. So you basically have your LA house, you have your family there, and then unless you're a supervisor or something, you have to pay your own housing and and stuff while you're there. I was lucky, like on the Revenant, I was working for the production, so I was at the Westin Calgary and things like that. So the nice thing about this gig is you get to travel the world. I think the COVID is going to democratize visual effects coming out of this a little bit, and the facilities are going to be able to get the workers from wherever they live. People are leaving Silicon Valley now. The rents are finally coming down because all those companies just said, you know what, screw it. We're going to sell our offices. You guys work remote. This is working out pretty good.
Yeah.
And you guys don't have to, pay $4,000 a month for a, one bedroom. So it's a lot of things. A lot of people are leaving LA, going up to Portland, going up to the the coast. People are moving back home. They're moving to where they want to be. And we have a son that lives in Appleton, and and our son, the actor, you'll appreciate this. So he was working on a show as a PA doing testing. They call them challenge testers. So I don't know if you've seen the ABC show Holy Moly, where you go through and it's like an obstacle course, and then at the very end you putt. Yeah. So that was a dream gig for him. He was a former hockey player, and he's done Shakespeare and and things like that. So he's a up and coming actor that was able to do these physical challenge things and stuff like that. And I mean, they'd electrocute you and be in cold water in Santa Clarita. I mean, it's probably like boot camp and stuff a little bit, except for not as hard, and everything's padded instead of being steel and stuff like that.
Sure.
But yeah, so he was on that, and then COVID hit, and he got laid off. So he was there out in LA, and we said, hey, why don't you come out by us? And we have a place called the American Players Theater or something like that here. So I'm looking at getting him into that because I don't see LA opening up for the rest of 2020. Things aren't going to get any better until the vaccine comes out. So I mean, if everybody's lucky, people in LA will start to getting back to work. Maybe April, or something like that. And that's wishful thinking, but I mean, that's all we can do. Visual effects people have run out of visual effects to do unless you're on animation. There's editors can't edit because nobody can shoot anything. Oh, one of the other projects I was doing, I've been doing Zoom comedy shorts. So we'll basically, just do a thing, and I'll direct it, from here and record it. And that's really been fun. I have a friend, Cassie, who is the producer that writes these great things, and so that's kind of what I've been doing. I mean, I've been shooting and directing these little shorts. I've got my own films and projects that I got going, and then I keep getting these independent films rolling in from Wisconsin that is basically keeping my hand in it. And then I use the Eclipse Tech, EclipseTech.co, if you want to look it up. I use those tools to basically test, what we're doing. It's just like, hey, I'm going to run Premiere on this today. Hey, I'm going to run After Effects, or I'm going to run Resolve on it. And then I go back to Ben, our principal engineer, and I say, hey, Ben, this part's working, this is not. Hey, let's get some, let's see if we can get more storage and work better with that. So got my hand in everything pretty much.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Well, I mean, you said, you've been lucky. I think, luck is just a matter of preparation meets opportunity. And, you had the education, and you had the experience, and you knew what you wanted to do. And it's either seeking out that opportunity or you're just prepped for when that opportunity lands in your lap.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff Ulm, can't thank you enough for coming on, and I'm definitely interested in talking a little offline, maybe about some productions but Eclipse and
EclipseTech.co.
EclipseTech.co.
Yep. And yeah, you can. It's very reasonable. Like the virtual machine time can be like, depending what region you're in, you can get machines for like $1.85 an hour, and then you get the storage in addition to that. But like the machine time, you only pay for what you use. So if you're going to use 3 hours, you may only spend less than $10 on your computer, time for that, and it can be a supercomputer. I mean, a really, you could solve COVID with it if you know what you're doing.
Oh yeah.
But in the meantime, you can probably just put a crowd in where there normally isn't a crowd. One of the things that's funny, we were talking baseball. Did you see the CG crowds that they put in some of the baseball games?
No.
Oh my God, that's hysterical. So they basically they put these CG crowds in, and it's the same camera tracking thing, and the crowds are unreal, unreal people and stuff like that, and they'll hit a home run into the stands, but of course the people in the stands aren't chasing the ball or anything like that. The ball just kind of goes and disappears into the CG.
But there's still somebody got hit in the face, but he's still like applauding or something. Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, yeah. I mean, it's definitely a new day, new age, and I'm excited to see what expands from what we've been experimenting with, or what we've been forced to experiment and adapt with, and just seeing how that expands. Yeah. But
I think for the foreseeable future, animation is really, if giving advice to new filmmakers and things like that, learning Unreal, learning some of these pre-visualization packages that you can prepare for your film. You can basically, like all stunts and things like that, go through a previs phase, and especially like Spider-Man or the Batman movies and stuff like that. They just don't say, "Hey, we're going to crash this car, then the flames are going to go up, and somebody's going to fly out of it." I mean, they do all that in CG, very cheaply. First off, to make sure that it looks cool. There's nothing worse than doing a stunt and then it's like, oh, that stunt kind of sucks. You want to know that it's going to be good going in. So it's a lot easier to do that in CG. And there's a lot of opportunity for students and filmmakers. I know that the students filmmaking is kind of shut down, right now. And even in the big LA film schools, there was somebody that had just posted. My daughter went to Chapman, and we have them as a client for Eclipse Tech. And I got a mailing that said, "Hey, we know we can't shoot productions right now." So rightfully so, universities have said, "Hey, no filmmaking this year, but do your animated stuff." And they were looking for an animator because there's somebody that had never done animation. It's like, hey, I got to do something with my filmmaking schooling and degree right now. So a lot of opportunity. I think the other big thing is many people are going to have to reinvent themselves. Guys that are bartenders. My son was a bartender and an Uber driver and an actor. I was like, well, you're the triple threat. You do a lot of things. Well, hey, COVID says there's no bartenders, there's no Ubers, and there's no actors. So, now you got to go to Wisconsin and hang out with your parents for a while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we're just, like I said, we're adapting and we're trying new things, and for those of us that kind of prepped for remote stuff, we're kind of ahead of the curve and ahead of the game. But there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of new tools, and like you said, animation. And definitely animation, yeah. I mean, I've been hearing a lot about Unreal Engine, so that's definitely a note, to highlight.
Yeah.
Well,
and then that's the other thing. It's an extension of video games, basically.
Yeah.
Once you build your environment and things, you can just pop that into it is a game engine. That's what it is. And you could make one of the best ways to probably learn is Unreal, and they have all kinds of tutorials for it. Is make your own video game. You can do first-person shooter things and all kinds of stuff, or fantasy. You can buy dragons and you can buy dwarves and stuff like that, and then there's little animation cycles that you can put on them that they do their thing. And the other really big thing, and this was one of the things I talked about in China because I knew it was going to be something big for them, is machine learning and artificial intelligence. So into compositing, I mean, we used to have to pick the green screen, do roto and things like that. Well, now if your background is the same thing, you can fire up a machine learning script, and Autodesk has tools like this, and Adobe, and it basically, instead of rotoscoping the person, it'll just extract the foreground. If that person's moving, it says, okay, this stuff's moving, that stuff's not. I'm just, it's just like, if you put up a virtual background in Zoom. I mean, normally you'd need a green screen and a whole big thing, and Zoom just does it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, a lot of opportunity for everybody. That's the other big thing is, take this time, there's going to be another, let's say, sort of shut-in phase as this thing ramps up, and people aren't gonna know the difference between the regular flu or if you have COVID and things. So you might as well just stay home. But take the opportunity to learn a new skill. During that, look at the Unreal Engine tutorials. You just go through them right there. You don't have to necessarily sign up for a class. You just need to be motivated to learn new things. And the other nice thing is it's a chance to be creative and escape into an outside world. You can create a whole VR environment or, a game, and, put your headset on and escape and go places. And because that's one of the things, I mean, we used to do virtual reality travel things, and, who'd have thought that, those should make a comeback, now, because we can't go anywhere. Can't even go to Canada. Can't go to Mexico. Can't go to Canada. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the time. It's really great meeting you, and yeah, look forward to seeing the episode. So where do we find it? And so I can tell all my friends.
It's gonna be on YouTube. On Dead On Pictures is my channel, and Zombie SquadCAST is the name of the podcast. So I mean, I'm thinking this is probably going to be like our 73rd or 74th episode so far. So it's kind of picking up steam, I think. And
Yeah.
But before we sign off, Jeff, any links, socials, plugs you want to put out there before we for the viewers?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is to look at to help expand your horizons a little bit, and if you don't have a powerful machine and you want to animate, the eclipsetech.co. My friend Dan Davies and his Film Forte thing, that we weren't able to do it this year. His father had died of COVID complications, and it just doesn't make sense. You can't do a film festival right now, and
Yeah.
so he's going to push that till next year. And Cassie Gray, Late for Dinner Productions on YouTube. You can see some great comedy shorts that I directed there. We have one, COVIDiots 19, which actually we need to bring back out because it was shot early in like April, and it was talking about the people in Wisconsin that wouldn't wear masks and things like that. And it was a bit of satire about those people. And now we're in the top 5 states in the United States for it, just because everybody had to go out for Labor Day. So that's a big thing. Really, everybody just do the right thing and be considerate of others, especially your family members and older family members that might be susceptible to things. You need to really think about other people, and then I guess the last one I'll do my I Dream of Psychopomp, Danny Villanova Jr.'s film. That should be coming out probably this year sometime. And then the other one is Jules and Meg's Road Trip, that Rianne Rell. That will actually be October. We just had a shot, in fact, yesterday, that I just had to send one more shot, to get it fixed. And but yeah, they'll turn that around, and then that'll be streaming. And that's the thing now. It used to be Blu-rays and DVDs and things like that. And, now they don't even, my computer doesn't even have a Blu-ray or a DVD reader, in them anymore. They just don't need them because you can stream them.
Yep.
That's really the big thing, too, is one of the causes that I'm working with locally is broadband for people in rural areas. I pay a lot for my satellite internet. I'm actually in an office in Spring Green, Wisconsin, which so I can get Spectrum internet. But I have satellite internet at my house, which is crappy. I pay $175 a month for it, and I can barely do a Zoom on it. And
Wow.
it's just ridiculous. These families with their kids trying to do things virtually.
Zoom schools, yeah.
Yeah, if your teacher's breaking up and you can't hear the audio, I mean, that's not a great learning experience. So, yeah, that's about it. I want to thank my wife for moving us to Wisconsin, and the fact that I was able to be working remotely before and all set up, and kind of, one of those things that I always jump in early on the technology, and I was lucky to be all prepped, and with Eclipse Tech, be an expert to be able to provide cloud solutions for animators and filmmakers, and things like that. So yeah, just trying to do good things for good people, help out fellow filmmakers, and do the do.
Hell yeah. Well, Jeff, that's awesome. I can't thank you enough for coming on to the show, and learned a lot. And and I appreciate all the stuff that you're doing for independent filmmakers and artists and stuff like that. And learned a lot. And so again, Jeff, it was a blast of an episode. To my viewers, I hope I've earned the privilege of your time and viewership. I know my guest has. And until next time, you know what to do.